Welcome back to Growth Colony. For those of you who are first-time listeners, you'll be hearing from B2B founders, CMOs, and marketing leaders. We chat about the newest and most effective tools and strategies in the B2B space. I'm Alex Hipwell with Xgrowth, and your co-host for this podcast, where we go candid with our guests' successes and failures, so you don't make the same mistakes. At least hopefully you don't. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Growth Colony's podcast. My name is Shaheen from Xgrowth, and today I'm joined by Boden Westover, the Vice President of Brand and Communication at Catapult. And we're going to be talking about the importance of brand marketing and the difference between brand marketing and performance marketing, what you should focus, where the overlaps, and how do you really define these two, and why is it important to define them? So on that note, let's dive in and start the conversation. Boden, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I was just saying in the little intro that you guys run amazing events, put out fantastic content, so always happy to be involved.
No, it's absolute pleasure, and the reason they're good is because we get speakers like yourself in there. That's the jewel of the crown mainly. So the rest of it is all logistics. So thanks again for joining us. Now, Boden, for those who might not be familiar with yourself or Catapult, can you give us a quick background on you and the company?
Yeah, so I'll talk about Catapult first. So Catapult engineer elite sports technology. So if you're in Australia, you might have seen our little GPS devices on the backs of AFL and NRL players. But we essentially have a platform of solutions used by over 3,000 professional and amateur sports teams around the world. So we help athletes, coaches, support staff not only answer questions about performance, but also discover which questions to ask in the first place. So I've been with the company for just over 7.5 years. Started out as media and marketing manager. I've never had a job description at Catapult, so my early role was sort of just help drive buzz, especially in the US, because we were just starting to crack that market, and we were just a small company of about a dozen people above a coffee shop in South Melbourne. I've since gone on to have various roles, but all in the marketing department. And our marketing department's been through many variations over the years, from regional to functional. And the majority of those 7.5 years, I was actually the entire marketing department, even when we had over 200 staff, and where your title's sort of irrelevant, you're just doing everything. So been an amazing experience so far. So I have a bit of a team under me at the moment. So I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, the Catapult story is an amazing story from, just like you said, a small company in Melbourne now to a publicly listed organization. So no, it's an amazing story. But today we're going to be talking about performance marketing and brand marketing, right? And as we were talking about before, this is something that in the past few months I've got more and more into, the difference between the two types of marketing, and where do you use performance marketing, where you use brand marketing, and it's absolutely fascinates me. So I'm super excited about our conversation today. I guess the first question that I want to ask is, I would love to get maybe a definition of, when we talk about performance marketing, what does that mean to you, and how do you define that?
Yeah, so I should start by saying this is subjective, and this is my opinion, because you'll read a lot of varying opinions out there. And at the end of the day, like, performance marketing is just marketing, and a lot of people just refer to brand marketing as branding. I don't personally like those terms, because very few companies have anyone in what you would call the branding department, because most people, when they hear branding, they just think of logos and design, and obviously brand marketing extends beyond that. But to me, performance marketing is any marketing that is easily measured and directly leads to an action. So it's also referred to as direct marketing in a lot of industries, and generally encompasses field marketing as well, which is sort of more the physical side. But to me, it differs to brand marketing in that it's measurable, it's sales driven, it's quite tactical and operational. It's designed to drive action right now, so it's therefore quite short term. And its scalability is in line with how much you're willing to financially invest. So performance marketing is generally driven by cost per impression, cost per click, customer acquisition cost per lead, all those sorts of metrics. They're all designed to better understand the buying behavior and market directly to specific individuals, which is why I think performance marketing is synonymous with anything that goes through digital channels, because this is probably where marketing's evolved the most in the last 50 years. So instead of paying to tell your brand story to the general population and not truly knowing the outcome, like now in theory, you only pay for your target audience to engage with your brand, and you can sort of constantly evolve what that engagement, what that transaction looks like.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, an example of that is, running a promotion saying, we're selling this and we're having a discount and because of this particular day of the year, and come and buy now, right? That's kind
right.
of performance marketing. So, but what is, you said brand marketing is people are like, hey, that's my logo, right?
Yeah.
And you said that that's not necessarily the case. How do you go about defining brand marketing?
Yeah, good question. So if performance marketing is like how you build awareness and what you want your audience to do, then brand marketing is why they should care in the first place. So compared with performance marketing, I see brand marketing is more long-term. It's a bit more strategic in a holistic sense in how it ties into your company values and your strategy. It's more story and emotion driven. It's also much harder to measure. And it's because of that reason that a lot of companies shy away from brand marketing, especially I think in the early days, because it's difficult to prove its ROI. And if you're going to have a small marketing team, you want that team focusing on driving sales now. But there've been a lot of studies recently about how performance marketing leads to peaks and troughs that don't necessarily lead to cumulative long-term growth, whereas brand marketing is more linear and slower, but the more you invest, the higher the upside down the track. So yeah, brand marketing is everything from the how, what, and why your company communicates, how you position yourself, why you exist, what your values are, how they permeate the impact you're making on your industry. So the one or two words that come to mind when your customers think about you. So to someone confused by the impact of marketing, brand marketing is the fluffy stuff. Generally reinforces their confusion because it can be difficult to show immediate impact or point to a specific thing that has been done to enhance your brand equity, which I think sometimes gives branding and brand marketing a bad name. And I'm obviously biased because I'm working in it every day. But yeah, you do see that long-term impact more so than performance marketing.
Yeah, that's a really good example. And I think it's quite dominant in the industry, and I've seen it multiple times with the clients that we work with, where it's all about, hey, tell me about the ROI, which is very important, and it definitely has its place. And I think it doesn't mean that you do one or the other. It's a combination of the two. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you can't really focus. I mean, you can't not have brand marketing because, like we said, the thing that most people think about is a logo and your colors and all that sort of stuff. So you need a brand. So whether you like it or not, you're communicating that brand. And if you're going to do any sort of marketing initiative, that's performance marketing. You can't have one without the other. I think it's more just about understanding what the two are. So I don't think one's more important than the other. It's more just being able to differentiate the two. And the important part is understanding the differences because that's going to drive any marketing initiatives. So I think for us, when communicating anything externally, you always have to ask yourself what you want your audience to think, feel, and do. So like, it doesn't matter if you're sharing a meme on Instagram or sending a monthly email newsletter, your answers to those questions will inform whether it's brand marketing and performance marketing, right? And therefore, why you're doing it in the first place. So I think it's probably more important in a B2B setting where you have that human brand touch point that is actually out there selling your product. So marketing can only drive sales up to a certain point in B2B. So I think it's important to understand the differences between the two in that setting, because if your head of sales wants marketing support on something, and it might be a quick win in converting a few prospects into customers that's going to negatively impact your brand equity down the track, then you need to be able to identify that as an issue and sort of educate the commercial team on the differences. Because like I said, the one isn't more important than the other. Both go hand in hand and work together. It's just about understanding the differences.
Gotcha. And look, what is your advice to a marketer who is in a company and there's always talk about ROI, and they might not even know that they're calling it performance marketing or whatever it is, but there's always talk about ROI, and the conversation around marketing is always around that. How would you go about and explaining to maybe the management that, hey, brand marketing is also important? Because I think it's always a hard discussion to have. How do you go about doing that?
So I think, yeah, it's a very good question. I think brand marketing, probably more than performance marketing, needs to get buy-in from all departments across the business. So we do things like NPS surveying, so which most companies would do, I would say. So if you're not familiar with it, it's Net Promoter Score. So you basically ask one question: would you recommend this service or product to a colleague or a friend? And they give a score 0 to 10. Based on that, it spits out a number and sort of tells you how fast you're going to grow as a company. So that, like, a lot of people think of that as a product question, and it sort of depends at what point you're asking a customer. If you're asking them while they're using a product, you could argue it's a product question, but we ask through email, and we're a little bit unique in that we work in elite sport, and a lot of our customers, like, they won't have a desktop computer or a laptop. They spend most of their time on the field or the court or the weight room. So we're capturing them on the go on their phones. But we use NPS as a brand signifier as much as a product one, because if we have a high NPS score, that means people want to recommend us, which means they feel an emotional attachment to Catapult.
Gotcha.
There's obviously a lot of other ways to measure ROI, but that's a big one for us. We put a lot of focus on PR, so understanding like share of voice in media articles, and obvious things like social media growth and engagement. So million different ways to measure ROI, but I think, yeah, just getting buy-in across various departments and educating what you're trying to achieve, I think that goes a long way in explaining that.
That makes sense. Now, how are these two, give us a little bit of an understanding of how these two work at Catapult. How do you and the team combine performance marketing and brand marketing, whatever you want to call them, at Catapult?
Yeah, so I think we're a little bit unique at Catapult in that we have an established B2B side that, like, everyone in our market knows us for, but we also have a small and growing B2C side where we're building a sort of separate brand equity. That brand it's got its own logo, it's got its own colors, and which we did on purpose a couple of years ago when we launched it, but we're now making greater connections between the two brands. But we're a little bit unique in that we're selling to essentially enterprise, so elite teams, but then also directly to consumer in young athletes. So I mentioned we've gone through a few different variations with our marketing team structure. We've had a regional approach where we were split into APAC, EMEA, and the Americas. We've been functional, where we're split into content, digital, and events. And we had a structure for a while with B2B on one side, B2C on the other side, and then a group marketing team in the middle. So that last example was sort of an example of the split between brand and performance marketing, and we're actually moving back to that structure as well. It's got its pros and cons, but and I might be doing this podcast prematurely because we're currently transitioning into that structure, because currently we have one marketing team, which is 10 people, most of which is in the UK and US. But in the next couple of months, we're transitioning back into that brand and performance marketing split.
We're totally going to hold you accountable.
That's right.
For what you say over here, it's all being recorded. So we're going to come back knocking on your door
to see how it goes. But yeah, so it will be unique in that the performance marketing team was actually be part of the commercial team. We'll have strong alignment with activation-based marketing channels, and then brand marketing team will sit in a completely separate part of the organization. So it obviously comes down to the heads of those two departments communicating very well. And yeah, like I said earlier, just educating other department leads on the value of brand marketing and what you're actually trying to achieve with it.
Very interesting. So there are going to be two different departments for you at Catapult, where one is they're under two different departments.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit unique. I mean, it's not as unique as it used to be. Like, you do hear a lot more about a brand marketing lead or head of brand and head of field marketing, direct marketing, whatever you want to call it. So, like, we're obviously not the only company doing this. It's becoming more common. It's a bit of an experiment. We as I said, we did it in the past, which was a little bit different because we had the B2B team and the B2C teams on the side. Yeah, I'm sort of looking forward to seeing how it plays out, because I think in a B2B setting, it does make a lot of commercial decisions easier having performance marketing so aligned and so entrenched in the commercial team. Because especially for us, we're in 139 countries, as in our technology is, and we have salespeople in I want to say probably 100 cities around the world, especially with the US. We've got people all over the place. So a lot of the times our business development managers, like they're not part of the marketing team, but they're an extension of the marketing team. And if you think about a region like South Korea, like where we have one person, actually two people, you can only do so much from a marketing perspective because at some point you hand it over to that person and it gets translated into another language. And everything we communicate to that market and everything we get communicated back from the market goes through that person. So the BDM sort of has to be a marketing person in their own right. So aligning them really tightly and having them all part of the same team makes a lot of sense. And then the brand parts, just keeping it separate. And we'll see how that part goes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you think, on this topic of separation of these two departments and having such defined roles for each of them, do you think that would have made sense for a younger Catapult? So Catapult in its earlier days would have that made sense when it was a smaller organization, or for someone who is in a smaller organization, a different model would make sense?
I think so. I mean, it kind of comes down to how you label the departments. So I think early on, I would have said in that period when I was the only marketing person, probably 80 to 90% of the work I did was on the brand marketing side anyway. I focused pretty heavily on PR and getting our messaging right, and just how we communicate the brand and the story. Because as I said, the BDMs do a lot of the work on the ground marketing anyway, so you don't want to step on their toes. You just want to empower them to make sure they have everything in place. But we had sales operations people fairly early that helped with sales activation, and they didn't have marketing titles, but looking back on it, a lot of what they did was sort of performance marketing work. So I think it does work early days. Even if you don't give those people those titles, you might not realize that they're doing those jobs. But I think you could do the split fairly early on.
Gotcha. Interesting. And tell me a little bit about mistakes. Like, what kind of mistakes maybe you've made or you've seen other companies make when they're differentiating between brand and performance?
Yeah, another good question. So I think the reason why it's important to understand the differences between the two, first and foremost, is that mistakes come from the expectations derived from what you're trying to do. For example, a thought leadership blog post that looks at your industry holistically, it's probably not going to lead to many sales, but it will strengthen how your audience thinks of your brand. Whereas an EDM with a discount code might help you sell some products right away, but it's not going to have a big impact on building an emotional connection between your customer and your brand. So if you're working in a B2B setting, clarifying why you're doing something, especially to your commercial team, is an important part of the process. So it's not always black and white, obviously. So the biggest gray areas we've found are PR and events, which are a huge part of our marketing strategy. So someone might enter your marketing funnel at an event for the first time, decide to buy right away, or keep you in the back of their mind for when your service is required. But the capturing of their details, the nurturing of that lead, the timing of communication post-event, that's all performance marketing. But what you're communicating, what your exhibition booth looks like, and what your guest speaker talked about on stage, they're all brand marketing. So I realize I haven't mentioned a mistake, but I think how you manage that process is pretty critical, and how you communicate the why behind every marketing initiative to your product team, to your commercial team. If you don't nail that, there's a lot of confusion. And when you try and pull off a big brand marketing initiative and your head of commercials well, why didn't this lead to any sales? That's a mistake, the lack of communication about the why part. And we've run into that quite a lot, where we've had this great idea, we've pushed it out there, and there's the perception that it didn't land or it didn't work or it didn't lead to sales. But that wasn't necessarily the goal of it. The goal of it was to build the brand. And that part's the difficult part to educate other people on and show the ROI, because it's very difficult to measure ROI on those things.
Now, I know in the past when we've had conversations, one of the things that you used to say was, if you're starting to build a marketing team, you recommend the first hire to be a good designer. I remember that was one of the things that you'd said. I think we had this conversation at maybe a year and a half ago. What do you think? Is that still the case here? Or, if you're looking at now, you're graduating from being one marketing person for the company, and you're kind of graduating, you're really looking at brand and performance as two separate entities. How would you start going about building that team?
It probably comes down to your own skill set as a marketing person. So if you're in charge of marketing in a very small company and you get the go ahead to hire someone, you want that person to be really good in an area that you're not good. That's probably, it sounds a bit stupid that I gave that advice thinking back. I think design's super important and should be a pretty early hire in any company. But me, I'm a little bit stronger on the brand marketing side. Or I should say I'm a little bit weaker on the performance marketing side. So if I could do it all over again, my first hire would be someone that's stronger in the areas where I'm not. So basically anything on the performance side. But yeah, it kind of comes down to the individual and the company as well, because B2B is very different to B2C. B2C, especially early on, you want to understand your market very quickly, and you need to do that through data, and you need to know how to sell through various channels. So you probably want to focus on performance earlier on. But yeah, I think it has to sort of depend on you as a marketing leader.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Now, look, those were some of the main questions that I wanted to ask. Is there anything else that you think we didn't cover that we should have covered?
No, I just kind of rambled to respond to quite a few of your questions. I can't even remember what I said now.
No, that was good. That was good. I think there was a lot of insight that you brought to the table, and around both of the topic of brand and performance marketing. I really enjoyed it. Now, Boden, if some of the listeners want to know more, either about you or Catapult, or they have more questions, what's the best way for them to know more?
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. So just my name, Boden Westover, and I'm at Catapult. Otherwise, my email's on my page, I think. Otherwise, it's just boden.westover@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out, ask questions, or tell me something I've said today is wrong, because I'm more than happy to hear that.
That's awesome. Well, Boden, thanks again for being on the show. And it was an absolute pleasure. And I'm looking forward to the next time.
Likewise. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for putting such great content out there.
Absolute pleasure.
Excluding this podcast, I should add.
Oh, please. You're being just humble. Thank you so much, Boden. Chat soon.
Appreciate it. You too. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode. If you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you rate and review it on Apple Podcasts or your platform of choice. And for more B2B growth content, check out our website, growthcolony.org. Looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a great day.